Please stop. Please. 6-year-old Emma Dawson was on her knees, trembling, scraping crushed food off a cold cafeteria floor with bleeding fingers. A 12-year-old boy stood over her, laughing. "Eat it like the trash you are." A teacher watched from 10 feet away, arms crossed, doing nothing. That's when Jake Dawson walked through the door. His daughter, on her knees, begging, bleeding, broken. Every muscle in his body screamed for violence. But what he did next brought 200 Hell's Angels to that school's front steps. And they didn't come for revenge. Before we continue, please subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The brown paper bag hit the floor before Jake Dawson even knew he had dropped it. His hand had been gripping it just fine a second ago. Grilled cheese sandwich. Emma's favorite. He had driven 20 minutes from the Route 7 diner to surprise her. He had been smiling when he pushed through the cafeteria doors. He was not smiling now. Emma was on the floor, his 6-year-old daughter, on her knees, her small hands, shaking, bleeding at the knuckles, were picking up pieces of a crushed peanut butter sandwich from the dirty tiles. A carton of milk had exploded beside her, white rivers running toward the drain. A bruised apple rolled slowly away from her, like even it wanted distance from what was happening. And standing over her, arms folded across his chest like a king surveying his kingdom, was a 12-year-old boy. "Your kind doesn't get to sit at the table," the boy said. Loud, proud, practiced. "Pick it up. That's what you're good for." Jake's vision went red. He was 44 years old, 6'1", 220 pounds of muscle, built from years of turning wrenches and riding highways. 8 years in the United States Navy, a lifetime of knowing exactly how to put a man on the ground in under 3 seconds. He could cross that cafeteria in 4 steps. He could lift that boy off the floor with one hand. He could make him understand pain in a way that 12-year-old brain would never forget. His boots took 1 step forward. Then Emma looked up, and Jake stopped. Because there was no relief in his daughter's eyes, no gratitude, no hope that her father had come to rescue her. There was only shame, the deep, gut-twisting, soul-crushing kind of shame that makes a child believe that what is happening to her is somehow her fault. "Daddy," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the word like thin ice breaking under too much weight. "Please don't be mad." Jake Dawson had survived combat. He had survived burying his wife. He had survived nights so dark he wasn't sure he'd see morning. But those 3 words nearly destroyed him. "He does this every day," Emma continued, barely audible, eyes on the floor. "He kicked my tray again." Again, the word detonated somewhere behind Jake's ribs. Again meant this wasn't the first time. Again meant his daughter had been living this, day after day, week after week, and he hadn't known. Again meant he had failed the one person he had sworn to protect. He turned slowly. 10 feet away stood Mrs. Linda Marsh, cafeteria supervisor, arms crossed. She had been watching. She had seen everything. She had done absolutely nothing. Their eyes met. Marsh uncrossed her arms. She shifted her weight. Her gaze darted toward the exit like a cornered animal calculating escape. "Mr. Dawson," she said. Her voice was thin, rehearsed, the kind of voice that has said the same excuse so many times it doesn't even sound human anymore. "Children will be children. Emma needs to learn to stand up for herself." Jake stared at her. "How long?" he said. "Excuse me? How long has this been happening?" Marsh didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence told him everything. Jake turned back to his daughter. The boy, Cody Barrett, still stood there, still smirking, still so sure of himself, so certain that the rules of this place protected him, that he hadn't even flinched. Jake wanted to break that smirk. God, he wanted to break it. But he didn't. He walked past the boy without a word. He knelt down beside Emma on the cold, dirty floor, and he began picking up the scattered food with his bare hands, right alongside her. "It's okay, baby girl," he murmured. His voice was steady. His hands were not. "I'm here now, and this is never going to happen again." Emma looked at him. Those eyes, Rachel's eyes, blue as an Oklahoma sky and carrying more pain than any 6-year-old should ever know. "You promise?" Jake pulled her into his arms, led her against his chest so tight he could feel her heartbeat against his. "I promise." He meant it. He just didn't know yet how big that promise would have to become. Jake carried Emma out of the cafeteria. He didn't look at Marsh. He didn't acknowledge the boy. He just walked, his daughter's face pressed into his neck, her small body trembling against him. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered into his collar. "I didn't want you to be sad." Something inside Jake's chest cracked wide open. "You have nothing to be sorry for," he said. "Nothing. Do you hear me? This is not your fault." "But Cody said—" "I don't care what Cody said. You are the bravest, strongest, most wonderful person I know, and I'm going to fix this. I swear to God I'm going to fix this." He buckled her into the truck. She was quiet the whole ride home. Her hands were still in her lap, palms up, the scrapes angry and red. Jake kept looking at them. Every time he did, something twisted deeper inside him. That night he sat on the edge of her bed. The room was dark except for a crescent moon nightlight glowing softly on the dresser. Rachel had bought it 3 weeks before she died. She knew Emma was afraid of the dark. "I need you to tell me everything," Jake said softly, "from the beginning." Emma's lower lip trembled. "You'll be mad. I will never be mad at you, never. Promise? Promise." And so she told him. She told him about the first day at Cedarwood Elementary, how Cody Barrett had announced to the whole lunch table that bikers were criminals, how he said her dad had probably been to prison, how he said that was why her mom left. "I told him Mommy didn't leave," Emma whispered. "I told him she died." Jake's jaw locked so tight his teeth ached. He laughed, Daddy. He laughed and said, "Good, one less biker family to worry about." Jake said nothing. He couldn't. If he opened his mouth right now, what came out would terrify his daughter. She told him about the trays kicked from her hands, every day, sometimes twice. She told him about being tripped in hallways, about whispers only she could hear. "Your mom died because God hates bikers. Nobody wants you here. Why don't you just disappear?" She told him about going to Principal Greenfield. "I told him everything, Daddy. I was so scared, but I told him." "What did he say?" Emma's voice went flat, empty, the way a child sounds when hope has been beaten out of them. "He said the Barrett family was very respected. He said they donated the computer lab and the playground and the library. He said I should try being nicer to Cody. He said it would blow over." Jake's fingernails cut into his palms. "Did it blow over?" "No, it got worse. After that, Cody knew nobody was going to stop him. He told everyone I was a snitch. He said if I told anyone again, he'd make sure I really disappeared." "Why didn't you tell me, Emma? Why didn't you come to me?" The question came out before he could stop it, and the answer she gave him was the worst thing he had ever heard. "Because Cody said bikers always go to jail. He said if you found out, you'd hurt him, and then the police would take you away. And then I'd have nobody." She paused. "You already cry at night, Daddy, when you think I'm asleep. You hold Mommy's picture and you talk to her. I hear you." Jake couldn't breathe. "I didn't want to make it worse. You already lost Mommy. I didn't want you to lose me too. So I tried to be invisible. I thought if I was quiet enough, small enough, maybe he'd stop." "Did he stop?" "No." The word hung in the dark room like smoke. "He never stopped." Jake pulled his daughter into his arms and held her until she fell asleep. Her breathing finally slowed. Her small body finally relaxed. She looked peaceful for the first time in months. Jake didn't feel peaceful. He walked into the kitchen, sat down at the table, and stared at the wall. For a long time, he didn't move. He didn't think. He just sat with the weight of what his daughter had been carrying alone, at 6 years old, because she was trying to protect him. She had been protecting him. The thought nearly broke him in half. At midnight, he picked up his phone and called Marcus Rains. Marcus answered on the second ring. His voice was instantly alert, the way a Marine's voice gets when he hears trouble in a brother's tone. "What happened?" "I need your help, Marcus." "Talk to me." Jake told him. All of it. The cafeteria, the boy, the teacher who watched, the principal who protected a donor's son, the months of torment his daughter had endured in silence. When he finished, the line was quiet for a long time. Then Marcus spoke. "What do you want to do?" "I want justice, real justice, not revenge. I want to expose every single person who failed my daughter, and I want to make damn sure it never happens to another kid." "That's a big fight, brother. The Barrett family owns half this town. Money, connections, lawyers. Warren Barrett practically built Elk Ridge. I don't care. They'll come after you, hard. Let them." Another pause. Then Marcus's voice changed. It dropped lower, harder. The voice of a man who had planned operations in places most people couldn't find on a map. "All right, here's how we do this. No fists, no threats, nothing they can use against us. We're going to bury these people in truth. We document everything. We find every family they've silenced. We gather every piece of evidence they thought they'd buried. And then we drag all of it into the light." "When?" "Now, tonight. You start writing down everything Emma told you. Names, dates, incidents, everything. I'll start making calls. By morning, we'll know how deep this goes." Jake exhaled. Something unlocked in his chest. Something that had been clenched so tight he hadn't even realized he couldn't breathe. "Marcus." "Yeah? Thank you." "Don't thank me yet, brother. Thank me when it's over." Jake hung up. He grabbed a notepad and a pen from the kitchen drawer and sat back down at the table. He wrote for 3 hours straight. Every incident Emma had described, every name, every date she could remember, the pattern of abuse, the indifference of adults who were paid to care. When he finally put the pen down, his hand was cramping and the notepad was filled front and back. He stared at it, months of suffering reduced to ink on paper. It wasn't enough. Not yet, but it was a start. 16 months earlier, Jake Dawson's life had been simple. He had a small house in Stillwater, Oklahoma, with a blue front door that Rachel had painted herself because she said red was too aggressive and green was too boring and blue was the color of calm. He had a motorcycle repair shop that smelled of oil and leather and the cheap coffee his crew drank by the gallon. He had Rachel who laughed so hard at her own jokes that she'd snort and then laugh harder at the snort. Rachel, who could make a stranger feel like the most important person in the room just by looking at them. Rachel, who had quit nursing after 11 years because she said she'd seen enough blood and wanted to spend the rest of her life making things that brought people joy instead of patching up things that brought people pain. She opened a tiny bakery called Rachel's Kitchen on the corner of Oak and 3rd. The pecan bars alone were worth the drive from 3 counties over. People came for the pastries and stayed for her because Rachel Dawson had a gift. She made everyone feel like they mattered. Jake ran his repair shop with his Hells Angels brothers. They were mechanics, veterans, fathers, men who had found in leather and chrome the family that blood had denied them. They weren't criminals. They weren't thugs. They were the guys who showed up at your door when your furnace died in January. They were the guys who passed the hat when a brother's kid needed surgery. Emma grew up with these men. They called her Little Star. They put her on their shoulders at barbecues. They taught her to shake hands firm, say thank you loud, and never, ever let anyone tell her she was less than extraordinary. She laughed all the time in those days, loudly, freely, like the world was one long joke that only she was in on. And then, it started with Rachel rubbing her temples one morning over coffee. "Just tired," she said. "Need more sleep." But the headaches didn't stop. Then came the dizziness, the nausea, the moments where she'd grab the counter for no reason, her face going pale, her knuckles going white. Jake begged her to see a doctor. She resisted the way nurses always resist, convinced she could figure it out herself, terrified that she already had. She collapsed in the bakery kitchen on a Wednesday. The flour she'd been sifting went up in a white cloud around her like a ghost. The test came back on a Thursday. Jake remembered the doctor's face. He remembered the careful way the man folded his hands. He remembered the words that emptied out his entire world in a single breath. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Inoperable. They gave her 6 months. She lasted 3. Rachel spent her final weeks at home. Jake slept on the floor beside her hospital bed every single night. He refused to leave the room. He ate standing up. He showered in 4 minutes. Emma climbed up next to her mother every morning, careful not to disturb the tubes, and read picture books aloud. She did the voices. She turned the pages slowly so Rachel could see the pictures. She never cried in front of her mother, not once. One night, after Emma had fallen asleep curled at the foot of the hospital bed, Rachel reached for Jake's hand. Her grip was so weak he could barely feel it. But her eyes, God, her eyes were still the fiercest things he'd ever seen. Jake, I'm here. I need you to promise me something. Anything. Protect her. Rachel's voice cracked, but she pushed through. Whatever it takes, she's going to need you to be her everything now. Her mother, her father, her whole world. Don't let anyone hurt her, Jake. Don't let anyone make her feel small. Don't let anyone take away that laugh. I won't. I promise. Say it again. I promise, Rachel. I'll protect her, no matter what. Rachel smiled. It was the last time Jake ever saw her smile. She died 3 days later. She was holding his hand. Emma's drawing, a stick figure family standing under a rainbow, was tucked against her heart. After the funeral, Stillwater became a haunted house. Every corner held Rachel. The bakery sat empty. The kitchen still smelled like cinnamon. Her pillow still held the shape of her head. Jake couldn't sleep in their bedroom. He tried once and woke up reaching for her, his hand closing around nothing, and the nothing was so loud he couldn't stop shaking for an hour. His Hells Angels brothers saw the destruction in his eyes. Marcus Raines drove to his house one evening, sat on the porch, and said the thing Jake needed to hear. Come to Elk Ridge. We've got work. The diner needs hands. Nothing complicated, just a new zip code and a reason to get out of bed. What about Emma? New town, new school. She's only 5. Kids are tougher than we think, and she needs her father alive, not drowning. Jake knew he was right. He packed their lives into a pickup truck. He put Rachel's photographs in a box on the passenger seat. He buckled Emma in and handed her a stuffed rabbit she'd had since birth. Where are we going, Daddy? Somewhere new, sweetheart. Will Mommy know where to find us? Jake's throat closed. He gripped the steering wheel so hard the leather creaked. Mommy will always know where to find us, baby. Always. He took one last look at the blue front door. Then he drove west. Elk Ridge was supposed to be a fresh start. For a while, it almost was. Jake found rhythm in the diner kitchen, flipping burgers, pouring coffee, working the morning rush alongside brothers who didn't ask him how he was feeling because they already knew. Emma started kindergarten at Cedarwood Elementary. She came home with finger paintings and stories about a teacher who let them have extra recess when it rained. But grief doesn't disappear. It just learns to hide. By the time Emma turned 6, the changes were impossible to ignore. She stopped asking for playdates. She picked at her dinner instead of inhaling it the way she used to. She walked with her shoulders curled in, like she was trying to fold herself into something too small to be noticed. Just adjusting, Jake told himself. It takes time. He had no idea what was actually happening. He had no idea that every single day, his daughter walked into that school and fought a war she believed she had to fight alone. He had no idea that the adults who were supposed to protect her had already decided she wasn't worth protecting. And he had no idea that a 12-year-old boy had looked at his grieving, motherless, 5-year-old daughter on her very first day at that school and thought, easy target. The bullying didn't start slowly. It started like a hammer. And for months, nobody swung back. Until a father walked through a cafeteria door carrying a grilled cheese sandwich, and the whole world changed. Jake sat at the kitchen table with his notepad full and his coffee cold. It was 4 a.m. The house was silent. Emma slept in her room, the crescent moon nightlight glowing through the crack under her door. He stared at the pages he had written, 42 separate incidents his daughter had described, names, dates, patterns. A 12-year-old bully who had never been stopped, a teacher who had been paid to look away, a principal who had told a 6-year-old girl that her pain was a misunderstanding. His phone sat beside the notepad. Marcus had texted 20 minutes ago. "I'm pulling records. This goes deeper than you think. Don't move until I call." Jake didn't move. He sat in the dark kitchen and thought about Rachel, about the promise, about how a dying woman's last wish had been so simple, protect her, and how spectacularly the world had conspired to make that simple thing impossible. He thought about Emma on that floor, her hands bleeding, her voice breaking on the word, Daddy. He thought about Cody Barrett's smirk. He thought about Mrs. Marsh's crossed arms. He thought about Principal Greenfield telling his daughter to be nicer. And somewhere between the rage and the grief and the exhaustion, Jake Dawson made a decision. He was not going to lose his temper. He was not going to throw a punch. He was not going to give Warren Barrett or anyone else a single reason to call him what they already assumed he was. He was going to do something far more dangerous than violence. He was going to tell the truth. And by the time he was finished, every person who had watched his daughter suffer and done nothing was going to answer for it. Not with fists, with facts. Jake picked up his pen and kept writing. Marcus called at 5:47 a.m. Jake had not slept. He picked up before the first ring finished. "Get dressed," Marcus said. "I'm outside." Jake grabbed his jacket and stepped onto the porch. Marcus sat on his Harley, engine idling, 2 coffees balanced on the tank. He handed one to Jake without a word. Jake took a sip. It was black and bitter and exactly what he needed. "Where do we start?" Jake asked. "The school, but not the front door. We watch first. I want to see exactly what happens inside that place before we make a single move." They rode to Cedarwood Elementary and parked across the street behind a row of tall elms. Jake killed his engine. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened the camera. "What are you doing?" "Recording. Everything we see today goes on file. No one can deny what's on video." For 3 hours they sat there, and what they saw made Jake's blood turn to ice. During morning recess, Cody Barrett shoved a boy half his size against the chain-link fence. The kid hit the metal hard and crumpled. Cody laughed and walked away. Mrs. Linda Marsh was standing less than 15 feet from the incident. She glanced over. She saw it. She turned her back and kept walking. Then Principal Thomas Greenfield crossed the playground. He walked directly past the crying boy on the ground. He didn't slow down. He didn't look. He adjusted his tie and disappeared through the front doors. Marcus recorded all of it. "That's morning recess," Marcus said quietly. "One recess. Imagine what happens every day." Jake's hands were white on the handlebars. "How do we bring them down?" "We build a case so airtight, no lawyer, no donor, no politician can make it go away. We find every family they've silenced, every piece of evidence, and then we go public in a way they cannot ignore." "How long?" 2 weeks, maybe less if we move fast." "Then let's move fast." That afternoon, Jake made his first call. His hands were steady. His voice was not. Rosa Delgado answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was tired, defeated. The voice of a woman who had already fought this fight and lost. "Mrs. Delgado, my name is Jake Dawson. My daughter Emma goes to Cedarwood Elementary. I understand your son Miguel had problems there too. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Who told you that? Rosa finally said. Another parent. They said Miguel was bullied. They said you reported it and nothing happened. Rosa's breathing changed. Faster. Shallower. The sound of a woman reliving something she had tried to bury. Mr. Dawson, I don't want trouble. We tried. We lost. They made it very clear we should keep quiet. Who made it clear? Principal Greenfield. He sat me down in his office and smiled at me like I was a child. He said if I kept pushing, he would review Miguel's disciplinary record. He said there were incidents that could be reinterpreted. My son was the victim, Mr. Dawson, and Greenfield threatened to turn him into the criminal. Jake felt the ground shift under him. He threatened your son's record? He didn't need to say it directly. The message was clear. Drop it, or your boy pays the price. So I dropped it. And I went home and I told my son that sometimes life isn't fair and we just have to keep going. I looked my child in the eyes and I told him there was nothing I could do. Her voice broke. Do you know what that does to a mother? Do you know what it feels like to tell your own son that the people who are supposed to protect him won't? That the people hurting him have more power than you do? Yeah, Jake said, I do. Something in his tone made Rosa pause. Your daughter, she said. How bad? She was eating off the floor, Rosa, on her hands and knees, picking up food off dirty tiles while a teacher watched. Rosa made a sound, not quite a gasp, not quite a sob, something in between. How old is she? 6. Dios mío. I'm not going to drop it, Rosa. I'm going to expose everything that's happening at that school, but I need your help. I need you to tell me what happened to Miguel. My husband said we shouldn't talk to anyone. He said we already lost once. You didn't lose, you were silenced. There's a difference. The line went quiet. Jake could hear her thinking. He could hear the fear battling with something else, something older and deeper than fear. What exactly are you planning to do? She asked. I'm going to gather every family they've hurt, every teacher they've intimidated, every piece of evidence they thought they buried, and then I'm going to walk into that school board meeting and burn their lies to the ground. They'll come after you. The Barrett family has connections everywhere. Warren Barrett practically owns this town. I know. You have a daughter, Mr. Dawson, a little girl with no mother. Are you sure you want to do this? My wife made me promise to protect Emma the night before she died. I held her hand and I swore I would. I'm not breaking that promise. Not for Barrett, not for anyone. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice had changed, stronger, clearer, like something inside her that had been sleeping had just opened its eyes. Come to my house tomorrow morning. I'll tell you everything. And Mr. Dawson, bring a recorder, because I kept things too. Things Greenfield doesn't know I have. Jake hung up and immediately dialed the next number on his list. He called 7 families that night. 4 hung up the second they heard the words Cedarwood Elementary. 2 listened, said they needed to think about it, and promised to call back. 1, a father named Kevin Palmer, didn't hesitate. My daughter Sophie was terrorized for 6 months, Kevin said. They met at a coffee shop the next morning. Kevin slid a folder across the table before Jake even sat down. Same pattern, Cody Barrett. Marsh looked the other way. When I complained to Greenfield, he told me Sophie was probably exaggerating. He suggested she might benefit from counseling to address her attention-seeking behavior. He blamed your daughter. They always blame the victim. That's how it works. If the kid's the problem, the school stays clean. Open the folder. Jake opened it. Emails, formal complaints, responses from Greenfield, dismissive, patronizing, dripping with carefully worded indifference. A paper trail of systematic failure stretching back 18 months. Why didn't you take this to the school board? Kevin laughed. It was not a happy sound. Warren Barrett sits on the school board. His brother-in-law is the district superintendent. You understand? The man who's protecting the bully is the same man who controls the people you'd complain to. The game is rigged, Jake, top to bottom. Then we go above them, media, state officials, whoever we have to. Kevin studied him, long and hard, the way a man studies another man when he's deciding whether to trust him with something dangerous. You're really going to do this? Take on the Barrett family. I don't have a choice. My daughter was on her knees. That's never happening again. Not to her, not to anyone's kid. Kevin nodded slowly. Then count me in, whatever you need. By Friday, Jake had assembled something that surprised even him. 11 families, 42 documented incidents, 7 teachers who had witnessed abuse and been told to keep their mouths shut. And then Amy Nguyen called him. She was 26 years old, 2 years at Cedarwood. She taught 2nd grade and she was terrified. If they find out I talk to you, I lose my job, she said. They met in a grocery store parking lot 3 miles from the school. Amy kept checking over her shoulder like she expected someone to jump out of the shadows. They won't find out, Jake said. Not until we're ready. I saw Cody push your daughter down the stairs last month. Jake's whole body went rigid. Down the stairs. She fell 4 steps. She got up and walked away like nothing happened. I watched her wipe her eyes and go back to class. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't cry. She just kept going. Jake couldn't speak. I reported it to Mrs. Marsh, Amy continued. She told me I must have misunderstood what I saw. When I pushed back, she said I should focus on my classroom and stop creating problems. She said it in front of 2 other teachers. It was a warning. Did she put it in writing? No, but I did. I wrote my own memo, dated it, kept a copy at home. I knew something was wrong. I knew they were covering things up. Can you testify at a school board meeting? Amy's eyes widened. A school board meeting? In front of everyone? In front of cameras, reporters, 200 people. They'll destroy me, Jake. Greenfield will blacklist me. I'll never teach in this state again. Or you stand up, you tell the truth, and you become the teacher who actually protected kids when nobody else would. Amy looked down at her hands. They were shaking. My grandmother was a teacher for 40 years, she said. She told me once that teaching means protecting children even when it costs you everything. I forgot that. I let fear win. It's not too late to remember. Amy nodded slowly. I'll testify, but promise me something. Name it. Promise me these kids will be protected. Promise me that when this is over, things actually change. I promise. Because if I do this and nothing changes, if I lose my career and those kids are still getting hurt, I don't think I could live with that. You won't have to, I swear. Amy looked at him for a long time. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a manila envelope. My memo. 3 other teachers have similar documents. They're too scared to come forward on their own. But if I go first, they might follow. Jake took the envelope. You're braver than you think, Amy. I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm about to throw up. That's what brave feels like. She almost smiled at that. Almost. Meanwhile, Marcus Raines had been running his own operation. Former Marine Intelligence. The man knew how to follow money the way a bloodhound follows a scent. He dug into Barrett's finances, his corporate filings, his connections, his donations. And what he found was worse than anything Jake had imagined. Sit down, Marcus said when Jake walked into the clubhouse that evening. This is bigger than a bully and a bad principal. He spread papers across the table. Financial records, donation receipts, internal school communications that Marcus had obtained through a contact at the district office. Warren Barrett has donated $1.8 million to Cedarwood Elementary over 7 years. Not to the general fund, direct payments, the computer lab, the playground, the library wing. Every major improvement that school has bragged about came directly from Barrett's wallet. He bought the school. He bought the people. Look at this. Marcus pointed to a bank statement. 3 years ago, Principal Greenfield's son-in-law applied for a job at Barrett Construction. No degree, no experience, no relevant skills whatsoever. Hired at $62,000 a year. Jake stared at the paper. Greenfield's family is on Barrett's payroll. It gets worse. Mrs. Linda Marsh received a $12,000 Christmas bonus last year, paid through a shell company. I traced it back through 2 LLCs. The money originated from Barrett Holdings. She was paid to look the other way. Paid well, and there's more. Marcus pulled out another document. 2 years ago, a janitor at Cedarwood filed an internal complaint about Cody Barrett's behavior. Said he'd seen the kid slam a younger student's hand in a locker door. The complaint was filed on a Monday. By Friday, the janitor was fired for performance issues. He'd worked at that school for 11 years with a spotless record. They fired a witness. They eliminated a threat. That's what this is, Jake. It's not just negligence. It's a system. Barrett pays. Greenfield protects. Marsh enforces the silence. And anyone who steps out of line gets crushed. How many kids, Marcus? How many have gone through what Emma went through? Based on what I've found, at least 40. Over the last 5 years, 40 kids who were bullied, who reported it, and whose complaints were buried because Warren Barrett's checkbook was more important than their safety. Jake leaned back and closed his eyes. 40 children. 40 families that had been told their kids didn't matter. 40 times the system had chosen money over a child's tears. This isn't a school board issue anymore, Jake said. This is criminal. That's exactly what it is. Bribery, witness intimidation, conspiracy. If we present this right, the state has to investigate. And if the state investigates, Barrett can't buy his way out. Will the state actually listen? Marcus looked at him dead in the eyes. They will when 200 Hells Angels show up at a school board meeting with cameras rolling and evidence they can't deny. Jake looked at everything spread across the table. Years of corruption, years of children suffering, years of adults choosing their paychecks over kids' safety. When do we move? School board meets in 9 days. That gives us time to prep testimony, coordinate the families, and get media on board. I want a journalist, someone who can't be bought. Already on it, I've got a name. Diana Castillo, Oklahoma Tribune, 15 years covering education corruption. She's got a reputation for being a pit bull. Once she grabs a story, she doesn't let go. Set up a meeting. Tomorrow, I'll bring her to the diner. Jake nodded. He gathered the documents carefully and put them in a folder. He stopped at the door. Marcus. Yeah. If this goes wrong, if Barrett's lawyers bury us, if the board shuts us down, I need to know Emma will be okay. I need to know someone will protect her if they come after me. Marcus stood up. He walked to Jake and put both hands on his shoulders. Brother, listen to me. Nothing is going to happen to you, and nothing is going to happen to Emma. You've got 200 men who will ride through hell for that little girl. Every single one of them. You are not alone in this. You hear me? I hear you. Good. Now go home. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we bring in the journalist, and the real war starts. Jake drove home. The streets were empty. The sky was black and full of stars. He parked in the driveway and sat in the truck for a few minutes, thinking about Rachel. She would have been furious. Not at him, at them. At every adult who had looked at a crying child and decided it wasn't their problem. Rachel had spent her whole career fighting for people in pain. She would have marched into that school and torn it apart with her bare hands. But she would have been proud of how he was doing it. No fists, no fury, just truth, assembled piece by piece, weapon by weapon, until the people who had hurt his daughter had nowhere left to hide. He went inside, checked on Emma. She was asleep, the crescent moon nightlight casting soft shadows across her face. Rachel's photograph was tucked under her pillow. Emma slept with it every night. She thought Jake didn't know. He knew. He pulled her blanket up to her chin, kissed her forehead, and whispered the same words he whispered every night. "I'm going to fix this, baby girl. I promise." He closed her door and walked to the kitchen. His phone buzzed. "Unknown number," he answered. "Mr. Dawson." The voice was cold, professional, the kind of voice that bills at $400 an hour. "This is attorney Philip Crane. I represent Warren Barrett." Jake's grip tightened on the phone. "Mr. Barrett is aware of certain activities you've been engaged in recently. Contacting families, gathering information, making accusations against his son and against employees of Cedarwood Elementary. Those aren't accusations, they're facts. That's a matter of interpretation. The law takes a very dim view of individuals who engage in campaigns to destroy someone's reputation based on unsubstantiated claims. My daughter was eating off the floor. I saw it with my own eyes. There's nothing unsubstantiated about that. Children have conflicts, Mr. Dawson. It's unfortunate, but it happens. What's happening now is that you are attempting to weaponize a minor schoolyard disagreement to attack a respected family." Jake laughed, hard and sharp, and without a trace of humor. "Schoolyard disagreement, is that what you're calling it?" "Mr. Dawson, I'm going to be very direct. If you continue down this path, you will face legal consequences. Mr. Barrett has considerable resources. He will pursue defamation. He will seek damages. And given your association with a certain motorcycle organization, I suspect a thorough examination of your background might reveal some uncomfortable findings." "That a threat, Crane?" "It's a professional observation. You're a single father, a young daughter, no mother in the picture. Is this really a battle you want to fight?" The words, "no mother in the picture," hit Jake like a fist to the throat. He closed his eyes. He saw Rachel's face. He saw her smile. He heard her voice, weak and fierce in the dark. "Protect her, Jake, whatever it takes." "Let me tell you something, Mr. Crane. 16 months ago, I watched my wife die. I held her hand while she took her last breath. Before she went, she made me promise to protect our daughter. I intend to keep that promise." Admirable sentiment, but sentiment doesn't hold up in court. Neither does bribery, neither does witness intimidation, neither does paying a teacher $12,000 to watch a child get beaten and do nothing. Silence on the other end. A long, dangerous silence. "You're making a very serious mistake, Mr. Dawson." "No, sir. Warren Barrett made the mistake when he let his son terrorize children and paid people to cover it up. I'm just shining a light. And Mr. Crane, you might want to tell your client that lights have a way of reaching places people thought were dark forever." He hung up. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something hotter. Something that burned clean and bright in his chest like a furnace with the door kicked open. He called Marcus. "They know," Jake said. "Barrett sent his lawyer, threatened me, defamation, background checks, the whole playbook." Marcus was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then he laughed. "Good." "Good? It means they're scared, brother. If Barrett felt safe, he'd ignore you. The fact that he sent a lawyer before we've even gone public means he knows exactly what we have, and he knows it can destroy him. He threatened to go after my background, my club, everything. Let him try. You've got a clean record, an honorable discharge, and a tax history that would bore an accountant to death. There's nothing to find. He's bluffing. What if he's not? Then we use his threats as evidence. Every call, every contact, every intimidation attempt, it all goes in the file. Barrett doesn't realize it yet, but every move he makes to shut us down is another nail in his own coffin." Jake exhaled. "What do we do now?" "We accelerate. Forget 9 days, we go in 6. And starting right now, every phone call you make, you record. Every interaction, you document. If Barrett wants to play dirty, we'll use his dirt to bury him. 6 days. 6 days, brother. And then 200 motorcycles are going to shake this town to its foundations." Jake hung up. He sat in the dark kitchen. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. 6 days. In 6 days, he would stand in front of a room full of people and tell them what had happened to his daughter. He would lay out every document, every recording, every suppressed complaint. He would name names. He would burn bridges. And he would make enemies who had more money, more power, and more connections than he could imagine. 6 days. He pulled out his notepad and started planning. Somewhere across town, in a house that cost more than Jake would earn in a lifetime, Warren Barrett sat in his study with a glass of bourbon and his phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what it costs," Barrett said. "I want that man's entire life turned inside out. Criminal record, financial history, custody situation, everything. And Philip, find something. I don't care if you have to dig to the center of the earth. Find something I can use." He hung up and took a long drink. Nobody threatened Warren Barrett. Nobody. He had built this town from nothing. He had funded its schools, paved its roads, put food on the tables of half its families. He owned the police chief's gratitude, the superintendent's loyalty, and 3 of 5 school board seats. One biker with a grudge and a loud mouth was not going to bring that down. He picked up the phone again. "Helen, it's Warren. We need to talk about the school board meeting next week. There may be some disruptions. I want them handled quietly." He listened for a moment. "No, Helen. I'm not asking. I'm telling." He hung up and stared at the wall. He had no idea that the man he was trying to destroy was building something he couldn't buy, couldn't threaten, and couldn't make disappear. He had no idea that in 6 days, the empire of silence he had spent decades constructing would come crashing down around him. And he had absolutely no idea about the 200 motorcycles. Diana Castillo arrived at the Route 7 diner at noon the next day. She walked in like she owned the place, shoulders back, eyes scanning every booth, every face, every exit. 53 years old, sharp jawline, reading glasses pushed up on her head like she'd forgotten they were there. She carried a leather bag stuffed with notebooks and a digital recorder she'd probably used on 100 stories that made powerful people lose sleep. Marcus stood up from the back booth. "Diana, thanks for coming." Marcus Raines, calling me out of the blue about corruption in a small-town school district. Couldn't say no to that. She slid into the booth and looked at Jake. Studied him the way a surgeon studies an x-ray. "You're the father." "Jake Dawson." Marcus gave me the broad strokes. "I want the details. All of them. Start from the cafeteria." Jake told her everything. He didn't rush. He didn't editorialize. He laid it out the way Marcus had taught him. Facts first, emotions second, evidence always. The cafeteria, Emma on the floor, Cody Barrett, Mrs. Marsh, Principal Greenfield, the months of abuse, the silenced families, the money trail. Diana didn't interrupt once. She took notes in a shorthand only she could read. When Jake finished, she set her pen down and leaned back. "How many families do you have?" 11. 42 documented incidents, 7 teachers willing to talk. Financial records? Donations, shell companies, the son-in-law on Barrett's payroll, the bonus to Marsh. Marcus has all of it. "And Barrett already sent his lawyer after you. 2 nights ago, threatened defamation, threatened to dig into my background, told me I was making a mistake." Diana almost smiled. "That's not a threat, that's a confession. Innocent people don't send lawyers at midnight." She pulled out a folder of her own. "I did some homework after Marcus called. Warren Barrett has been the largest private donor to the Elk Ridge School District for 9 years. His brother-in-law, Carl Givens, has been superintendent for 6. Before Givens took the job, there were 17 bullying complaints per year at Cedarwood. After he took over, that number dropped to 3. Jake frowned. "The bullying got worse, not better. Emma proves that." "Exactly. The complaints didn't decrease because the bullying stopped. They decreased because the complaints were being suppressed. Givens changed the reporting protocols his first year. All complaints now route through the principal's office instead of going directly to the district. That means Greenfield, Barrett's man, is the gatekeeper. Nothing gets through that he doesn't want getting through. They redesigned the system to bury complaints. Systematically. And I found something else. Diana pulled out a printed email. 3 years ago, a fourth-grade teacher named Robert Campos filed a complaint directly with the state education department, bypassing the school entirely. He reported that Cody Barrett had broken another student's wrist on the playground and that the school had recorded it as an accidental fall. Jake felt sick. A broken wrist. The state opened a preliminary inquiry. It lasted 11 days. Then it was closed. Insufficient evidence. I pulled the inquiry file through a public records request. The investigator assigned to the case was a man named Dennis Meacham. Dennis Meacham retired from state service 6 months later. His retirement party was held at Barrett Country Club. His wife now works part-time at Barrett Construction. Marcus slammed his palm on the table. He bought off the state investigator. He didn't just buy him off, he absorbed him. That's Barrett's pattern. He doesn't bribe people once. He brings them into his orbit permanently. Jobs for their families, memberships at his club, invitations to his parties. By the time they realize they owe him, they're in too deep to get out. Jake stared at the email. So even if we go to the state again, different investigator this time, Meacham's been gone for years. But that's why your evidence has to be airtight. Barrett's lawyers will argue that every complaint is exaggerated, every family has a grudge, and every teacher is disgruntled. We need documentation so solid that dismissing it would make the state look complicit. We have it. I need to verify it myself. Every document, every family, every recording. I interview everyone personally. If a single piece of evidence doesn't hold up, Barrett's lawyers will use it to discredit everything else. How long? 5 days. Your school board meeting is in 6. That's cutting it close. It has to be. Here's the strategy. I publish the morning of the meeting, not the night before, not 2 days early, the morning of. Maximum impact. If I publish early, Barrett gets time to prepare, spin the story, coach witnesses, maybe even get an injunction to block the article. But if the story drops at 6 a.m., and your testimony starts at 7 p.m., he's got 13 hours to panic and 0 time to prepare. Jake nodded. Hit them from both sides at once. Exactly. The article destroys their credibility in public. Your testimony destroys it in person. By the time they figure out what happened, the whole state is watching. What do you need from me? Everything. Every document, every recording, every name. And Jake, I need you to understand something. When this story goes live, your life changes. Barrett will come after you with everything he has. Lawyers, private investigators, media attacks. It's going to get personal. It's going to get ugly. And it's going to last a long time. I know. Do you? Because I've seen this before. Good people stand up, the powerful push back, and the good people break. Not because they were wrong, because the fight was longer and harder than they expected. Jake looked at her. 16 months ago, I watched my wife die of cancer. She weighed 87 pounds at the end. She could barely lift her hand, but she grabbed me and she said, "Protect her, Jake, whatever it takes." I'm not going to break, Diana. I've already survived the worst thing that can happen to a person. Warren Barrett is just a man with a checkbook. Diana held his gaze for a long moment. Then she picked up her pen. All right, Jake Dawson, let's burn it down. The next 5 days moved like a war. Diana worked 18 hours a day. She interviewed every family in person. She cross-referenced every financial document. She tracked down Robert Campos, the teacher who had filed the state complaint 3 years earlier and been ignored. Campos was teaching in Tulsa now. He drove 3 hours to meet her and handed over a file he'd kept hidden in his garage. I always knew someone would come asking, Campos said. I just didn't think it would take this long. His file contained something explosive. An email from Superintendent Carl Givens to Principal Greenfield, sent the day after Campos filed his state complaint. The email read, "Handle this. The Barrett family cannot be exposed to liability. Whatever Campos submitted, make it disappear. Carl." Diana held the paper like it was made of gold. "This is a direct order from the superintendent to cover up a complaint. This alone could end careers." "That's why I kept it," Campos said. "That's why I made 3 copies and hid them in 3 different places. Because I knew someday the truth would need proof." Meanwhile, Jake coordinated with the families. Rosa Delgado was the first to confirm she would speak at the board meeting. Kevin Palmer was second, then 3 more families, then 2 more. But on day 3, the pressure started. Kevin Palmer called Jake at 9 p.m., his voice tight. "Someone slashed my tires tonight, Jake. Both rear tires. Clean cuts. Deliberate." "Did you see who?" "No, but there was a note on my windshield. It said, 'Mind your own business.'" Jake's blood went cold. "Did you call the police?" "I called. They took a report. The officer who showed up asked me 3 times if I was sure it wasn't just road damage. 3 times, Jake. Then he asked if I'd been involved in any disputes recently. He knew. The cops already knew." Jake called Marcus immediately. "They're going after the families. Kevin Palmer's tires got slashed. A warning note." "Who else?" "I don't know yet. Call everyone. Tonight. Make sure they're all okay. And tell them this is exactly what Barrett wants. He wants to scare people into backing off. If anyone drops out now, he wins." Jake spent the next 2 hours on the phone. Rosa Delgado hadn't been contacted. Amy Nguyen was fine. But a third family, the Hendersons, had received a phone call from an unknown number that afternoon. A voice, male, calm, no name given, had asked if their son Tyler was still enrolled at Cedarwood. Nothing else, just that one question. Then the line went dead. Mrs. Henderson was terrified. "That was a threat, Jake. They're telling us they know where our son goes to school." "I know what it was, and I need you to stay strong." "Stay strong? Someone just threatened my child." "And in 5 days, the people who threatened him are going to be exposed in front of the entire state. Every camera, every journalist, every official who has the power to hold them accountable, but only if we don't break." "I'm scared, Jake." "I know, I'm scared too, but I'm more scared of what happens if we say nothing. If we stay quiet, Barrett wins. And if Barrett wins, the next kid who gets bullied at that school has nobody. Nobody to fight for them. Nobody to stand up. Is that what we want?" Long silence. Then Mrs. Henderson's voice came back, still shaky but steady underneath. "No, that's not what we want." "Then we hold the line. We hold the line." Jake hung up and put his head in his hands. Barrett was playing hardball. Intimidation, surveillance, implied threats against children. This was no longer just a fight about a school board meeting. This was a man who would do anything to protect his empire. Jake looked at the clock. 3 days left. On day 4, Marcus dropped a bombshell. He walked into Jake's kitchen without knocking, which meant it was serious. Marcus always knocked. He was the most polite outlaw Jake had ever known. "We've got a problem," Marcus said. "What kind?" "The kind that could blow this whole thing open even wider. Sit down." Jake sat. "I got a call this morning from a woman named Patricia Greenfield." Jake's head snapped up. "Greenfield, as in the principal's ex-wife." "He has an ex-wife?" "Divorced him 4 years ago. She lives in Norman now. She heard about what's happening. It's already leaking around town. And she called me because she's friends with one of the chapter wives." "What did she say?" "She said Thomas Greenfield has been taking cash payments from Barrett for 6 years. Not just the son-in-law's job. Direct cash. Envelopes. Handed to him personally by Barrett's driver every quarter. $25,000 a year." Jake felt the floor tilt. Cash payments. Off the books. Completely. Patricia found out during the divorce. She confronted Greenfield. He told her if she ever mentioned it to anyone, he'd make sure she lost custody of their 2 sons. She was so scared she signed the divorce papers without fighting and moved out of town. He threatened his own wife. With Barrett's backing, she said Barrett's lawyer called her directly, Philip Crane, same guy who threatened you, and told her that any public discussion of Greenfield's finances would result in a defamation suit and a custody challenge that she, quote, could not afford to win. Is she willing to testify? She's willing to provide a sworn, written statement. She won't come to the meeting in person. She's still afraid of what they'll do, but she'll put everything in writing and sign it in front of a notary. That's enough. That's more than enough. There's one more thing, Marcus paused, the kind of pause that comes before the thing you don't want to hear. Patricia told me something about Barrett's son, about Cody. What about him? She said Greenfield told her once, during an argument, that Cody Barrett had been expelled from his previous school in Dallas before the family moved to Elk Ridge. Expelled for violence against another student. The records were sealed as part of a settlement Barrett paid to the other family. Jake's stomach turned. He was expelled for violence, and they put him in a new school, and nobody was told. Nobody at Cedarwood knows, not the teachers, not the other parents. Barrett paid to make those records disappear, and Greenfield helped him bury them here. He put a violent kid with sealed records in a school full of children and made sure no one could protect them. That's exactly what he did. Jake stood up. His hands were fists. His jaw was locked. For the first time in this entire fight, he felt something beyond anger. He felt fury. Deep, righteous, burning fury at a system so corrupt that a man with enough money could erase his son's history of violence, plant him in a new school, and pay the principal to make sure no one ever found out. Does Diana know? I'm calling her next. Call her now. Diana Castillo received the information about Cody Barrett's sealed expulsion records and Patricia Greenfield's statement at 11:30 p.m. She called Jake at midnight. This changes everything, she said. This isn't just corruption anymore. This is reckless endangerment. Barrett knowingly placed a child with a documented history of violence in a school without disclosing that history. Children were physically harmed as a result. That's not just a civil matter, that's criminal. Can you prove it? Patricia's statement establishes that Greenfield knew. The financial records prove Barrett paid for the cover-up, and Robert Campos's file proves the state was deliberately misled. Jake, I've covered education stories for 15 years. I've never seen anything this dirty. Is the story ready? I'm writing through the night. It'll be the most comprehensive piece I've ever published. Front page, above the fold. And I've already contacted CNN, Fox, and MSNBC. They're all sending crews to the board meeting. National coverage. This story is going national the second it drops. A billionaire covering up his son's violence, buying off a principal, bribing a state investigator, and threatening families into silence. And then 200 Hell's Angels show up to fight for a 6-year-old girl? Jake, this is the biggest story in the country. Jake closed his eyes. 2 days. The next morning, he sat Emma down at the kitchen table before school. Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something. Emma looked at him with those eyes. Rachel's eyes. The eyes that had seen too much for 6 years of life. Is it about the bad people? Yeah, baby, it is. Are you fighting them today? In 2 days. There's going to be a big meeting. A lot of people will be there. Reporters with cameras, people from all over. Are you scared? A little. Mommy said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing, even when you are. Your mommy was right. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she straightened her shoulders the way Jake had seen Rachel do 1,000 times before walking into a hard shift at the hospital. I want to come with you, Daddy. Emma, it's my story too. I want them to see me. I want them to know I'm not invisible." Jake looked at his daughter, 6 years old, shoulders squared, chin up, Rachel's fire burning in those blue eyes. "Okay, you can come, but you stay next to me the whole time. I promise. And if it gets too much, if you want to leave at any point, you tell me and we walk out together. No questions." "I won't want to leave." "How do you know?" "Because you'll be there. And when you're there, I'm not afraid of anything." Jake couldn't speak for a moment. He just reached across the table and held her hand. That afternoon, the final piece fell into place. Marcus called with 3 words. "The brothers are confirmed." How many? 212. Every chapter in Oklahoma, plus 37 from the Texas border chapter and 19 from Kansas. They'll ride in formation. They'll park in orderly rows. They'll wear dress shirts over their cuts. And they won't say a single word unless someone speaks to them first. 212. Every one of them a volunteer. Every one of them a father, a brother, an uncle, or a grandfather. I told them about Emma. I told them about the cafeteria. I told them about a 6-year-old girl eating off the floor while a grown woman watched. You know what happened? What? Grown men cried, Jake. Hard men. Road men. Men who've stared down things that would make Barrett wet himself. They cried. And then every single one of them said the same thing. When do we ride? Jake gripped the phone. His eyes burned. They're not coming for revenge, Marcus continued. They're not coming to intimidate. They're coming to bear witness, to stand with a father who's fighting for his child, to show this town, this state, this country that a community can stand up to money and power and corruption, and that the people who hurt children are going to be held accountable. 212. 212, brother. And every single one of them would ride through a wall for your little girl. Jake hung up. He walked to Emma's room. She was sitting on her bed, holding Rachel's photograph, talking to it softly. She did this every night. Jake usually listened from the hallway. Tonight he stood in the doorway. Hi, Mommy, Emma was whispering. Tomorrow's almost the big day. Daddy's going to tell the truth about the bad people. I'm going with him. I'm scared, but I'm going to be brave like you always said. She paused, as if listening. A lot of motorcycle men are coming to help us. Daddy says they're family. I think you'd like them, Mommy. They're loud, but they're nice. Another pause. I miss you. I miss you every single day. But I think you're watching. I think you can see us. And I think you're proud. She kissed the photograph and tucked it under her pillow. Jake stepped back into the hallway before she could see him. He pressed his back against the wall and closed his eyes. Tears ran down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. Tomorrow night, he would stand in front of a room full of cameras and strangers and enemies and tell them what happened to his daughter. He would name names. He would present evidence. He would take on a man who had spent decades building an empire of silence and corruption. And 212 men on motorcycles would be standing behind him. Not for revenge, for a 6-year-old girl who just wanted to eat her lunch in peace. Jake wiped his face, walked to the kitchen, and opened his notepad one final time. He wrote 2 words at the top of a blank page. For Emma. Then he started rehearsing what he would say to the school board, the words that would shake Elk Ridge to its foundations and make Warren Barrett's empire crumble like it was built on sand. Because it was. It had always been built on sand, and tomorrow the tide was coming in. The morning came hard and fast. Jake's phone rang at 5:58 a.m. He was already awake. He had been awake since 4, sitting at the kitchen table in the dark, running through his testimony in his head for the 100th time. Diana Castillo's name lit up the screen. It's live, she said. No preamble, no small talk. Front page, Oklahoma Tribune website. The print edition hits newsstands in an hour. I've already had calls from CNN, Fox, Associated Press, and Reuters. How bad is it for them? Devastating. I verified every single piece of evidence. The payments to Marsh Greenfield's family on Barrett's payroll, the superintendent's email ordering the cover-up, Cody's sealed expulsion records from Dallas, Patricia Greenfield's sworn statement about the cash payments, Robert Campos's file, all of it, published, sourced, bulletproof. Jake gripped the phone. And Barrett? Barrett's PR team has been calling my editor since 4 a.m., threatening lawsuits, demanding retractions. My editor told them to file whatever they want. The story stands. Is there anything else? Diana paused, the kind of pause that meant she was holding something back. 3 more families called me last night, Jake. After the online edition went up at midnight, families who never reported, families who were too scared to even whisper about what happened to their kids. One of them has a recording. A recording of what? Principal Greenfield on the phone with a mother named Deborah Watkins. Her son was beaten in the bathroom by Cody Barrett 2 years ago. She recorded the call without Greenfield knowing. On the tape, Greenfield explicitly tells her, and I'm quoting, "Mrs. Watkins, I strongly suggest you let this go. Mr. Barrett has been very generous to this school, and I would hate to see your son's enrollment status become a topic of discussion." He threatened to expel her son for reporting an assault. On tape, clear as daylight, I included it in the article. The audio is embedded in the online version. It's already been played 40,000 times. Jake closed his eyes. Every new piece of evidence was another nail. Every revelation, another crack in the wall Barrett had built around himself. Diana. Yeah? Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me after tonight. Barrett's not going to go quietly. His lawyer has probably been on the phone all morning. They're going to try something. I don't know what, but they will. Let them try. Jake hung up and walked to Emma's room. She was already awake, sitting on her bed, dressed in the blue shirt Rachel had bought her, the one with the little yellow star on the pocket. She was holding Rachel's photograph. Is today the day, Daddy? Today's the day, sweetheart. I'm ready. You sure? Emma looked at him. 6 years old, steady eyes, squared shoulders. Her mother's daughter in every way that mattered. Mommy said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. I know what she said. I'm scared, Daddy, but I'm ready. Jake knelt down and kissed her forehead. Then let's go be brave. They drove to the Elk Ridge Community Center in silence. Jake kept one hand on the wheel and one hand holding Emma's. She didn't let go the entire way. By 5 o'clock, the parking lot was already filling. Jake pulled in and saw Rosa Delgado standing near the entrance, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding herself together by force. Her eyes were red. Have you seen the news? Rosa said when Jake walked up. I saw it. It's everywhere. My phone hasn't stopped. Other parents, teachers, people I've never met, they're all asking if it's true. Every word. Kevin Palmer appeared behind Rosa, his daughter Sophie's hand in his. Sophie was 7, blonde hair in a ponytail, wearing a dress that was obviously her best one. She looked at Emma and smiled shyly. Emma smiled back. 2 girls who had been tormented by the same boy, standing together for the first time. Big crowd tonight, Kevin said. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. Bigger than we expected. You nervous? Yeah. Good. Means you care. Amy Nguyen arrived next. She looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days. She probably hadn't. She walked up to Jake and said nothing for a moment. Then she straightened her spine and nodded once. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Thank you, Amy. Don't thank me. I should have done this a year ago. One by one they gathered. 11 families who had been silenced. 7 teachers who had been told to look away. All of them scared. Every single one of them shaking. But not one of them turned around. And then Jake heard it. It started low. A rumble so deep it felt more like a vibration in his chest than a sound in his ears. It built slowly, growing louder, heavier, until the ground itself seemed to pulse. Emma's hand tightened in his. Daddy, what's that? That's our family, sweetheart. They came around the corner in a single column that stretched back so far Jake couldn't see the end. 212 Hells Angels in perfect formation. Chrome catching the late afternoon sun. Engines shaking the windows of every building on the block. A river of leather and steel that poured into the parking lot and kept coming, and kept coming, and kept coming. Rosa Delgado put her hand over her mouth. Kevin Palmer's eyes went wide. Amy Nguyen started crying. The bikers parked in precise rows. Engines died one by one, and the sudden silence was almost louder than the noise had been. They dismounted, every single one of them wearing a dress shirt over his cut. Clean boots, combed hair. These were not men who had come to fight. These were men who had come to stand. An older rider with a silver beard walked to Jake and gripped his hand. 212, brother. Every one of us. Where do you need us? Inside, back rows. Don't speak unless spoken to. We're here to witness, not to threaten. The old man nodded. Understood. Emma tugged Jake's hand. He looked down. She was staring at the army of bikers with eyes as wide as saucers. Daddy, are all those men here for us? They're here for you, baby. Every one of them. That's a lot of people who care. More than you know, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know. Marcus Raines appeared at Jake's side, calm, focused. The Marine commander he'd been 20 years ago, ready for the operation he'd been planning for weeks. We're set. Diana's inside with 2 cameramen. CNN has a crew in the 3rd row. Local news is set up at the back. The board members are already seated. They look terrified. And Barrett? Back row, far right. Philip Crane sitting next to him. Barrett looks like he wants to kill someone. Good. Let him look. Jake, Marcus grabbed his arm. Whatever happens in there, whatever they say, whatever Barrett does, you stay calm. You stay on message. You tell the truth. That's all you have to do. I know. You've got 200 brothers behind you, 11 families beside you, and 1 little girl holding your hand who's braver than every person in that building combined. Jake looked at Emma. She looked back at him. Ready, Daddy? Ready. They walked in. The community center was packed beyond capacity. People stood along the walls. They sat in the aisles. They crowded the doorways. The 5 school board members sat behind a long table at the front, their faces locked in expressions of carefully maintained composure that was cracking at the edges. Board President Helen Crawford kept adjusting her glasses. The man to her left was sweating through his jacket. In the back row, Warren Barrett sat with his legs crossed and his jaw clenched. Philip Crane whispered something in his ear. Barrett didn't react. He stared straight ahead with the controlled fury of a man who had never been publicly challenged in his entire life and was about to be. Crawford cleared her throat. Her voice came out thin. This meeting will come to order. We have several items on tonight's agenda, beginning with, Jake stood. Madam President, every head in the room turned. I'd like to address the board. Crawford's eyes narrowed. Public comments are scheduled for the end of the meeting. With respect, ma'am, I don't think this can wait. And from the look on your face, I don't think you want it to. Murmurs rolled through the crowd. Crawford glanced at her fellow board members. 2 of them looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. 1 nodded almost imperceptibly. Fine, Crawford said tightly. You have 5 minutes. Jake walked to the microphone. He felt 200 pairs of eyes on his back. He felt Emma's hand in his. He felt Rachel somewhere close, watching, waiting, believing in him the way she always had. He spoke. My name is Jake Dawson. 16 months ago, my wife Rachel died of cancer. Before she died, she made me promise one thing, protect our daughter, whatever it takes. The room went still. 3 weeks ago, I walked into the cafeteria at Cedarwood Elementary to surprise my daughter with her favorite sandwich. What I found broke something inside me that I don't think will ever heal. His voice dropped lower, not for effect, because the memory still burned. My 6-year-old daughter was on her knees on a dirty floor. She was bleeding. She was shaking. A 12-year-old boy stood over her, laughing, telling her to eat like the trash she was. And a teacher, a grown woman whose job was to protect children, stood 10 feet away with her arms crossed, watching, doing nothing. Gasps, real gasps, the sound of 200 people inhaling at the same time. I wanted to hurt someone that day. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. Every instinct I had screamed for it, but I didn't. Because violence wouldn't fix what was broken. Violence wouldn't change the system that allowed my daughter to suffer in silence for months, while adults who knew, chose to protect their paychecks instead of a child. He turned and looked directly at Principal Thomas Greenfield. Greenfield was in the second row. His face had gone the color of old paper. My daughter tried the right way. She walked into Principal Greenfield's office and told him everything. She was terrified. She was 6 years old, and she looked a grown man in the face and asked for help. Jake's voice hardened. Do you know what he told her? He told her the Barrett family was very respected. He told her they donated the computer lab, the playground, the library. He told her to try being nicer to the boy who was tormenting her. And then he sent her back into the hallway to face it alone. Greenfield's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The man beside him leaned away, as if failure were contagious. But this isn't just about my daughter. This is about 42 children who were bullied at Cedarwood Elementary over the past 5 years. 42 complaints that were suppressed. 42 families that were threatened, intimidated, or ignored. Because Warren Barrett donated $1.8 million to this school. Because Principal Greenfield's son-in-law works at Barrett Construction. Because Mrs. Linda Marsh received $12,000 last Christmas to look the other way. Because Superintendent Carl Givens personally ordered the cover-up of at least one violent incident in a written email that is now in the hands of every journalist in this room. The room detonated. People shouted. Cameras lunged forward. Board members looked at each other like passengers on a sinking ship searching for lifeboats. Helen Crawford banged her gavel. Order! Order! Jake waited. The room settled. He continued. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here with 200 men who rode from across this state because they believe children matter more than donations. They're not here to intimidate anyone. They're here to witness, to make sure the truth can't be buried again. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick folder. He placed it on the table in front of the board. 42 suppressed complaints, financial records showing payments to school employees, employment records proving quid pro quo, audio recordings of administrators threatening parents, a sworn statement from Principal Greenfield's ex-wife confirming unreported cash payments, and sealed expulsion records proving that Cody Barrett was removed from a school in Dallas for violence before being placed at Cedarwood, with his history deliberately hidden from every teacher and every parent in this building. Crawford stared at the folder like it was a bomb. The Oklahoma Tribune published a full investigation this morning. State education officials have been notified. CNN is broadcasting from the back of this room right now. The decision about what happens next is yours. You can keep protecting the powerful, or you can finally protect the children you were elected to serve. Jake stepped back from the microphone. Silence. Total, absolute silence. Then Warren Barrett exploded out of his chair. This is outrageous. His face was crimson. His hands shook at his sides. Philip Crane grabbed his arm. Barrett ripped free. This man is a criminal. He's in a motorcycle gang. He's using his daughter as a prop to destroy a family that has given everything to this community. Jake turned to face him, calm, level, the way a man looks when he has nothing left to lose and nothing left to fear. I've never been arrested, Mr. Barrett, never been convicted of anything. I served 8 years in the United States Navy. I've paid my taxes, followed the law, and raised my daughter alone after her mother died. Can you say the same about protecting children? Barrett lunged forward. 2 of his associates grabbed him and hauled him back. His lawyer hissed something in his ear. Barrett wasn't listening. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I built this town. I fund every program that keeps this school running. Without me, there'd be no computers, no playground, no—" "And with you," Jake said quietly, "there were 42 children who learned that money matters more than their safety, that their pain doesn't count, that adults will stand by and watch them suffer as long as the checks keep clearing." Barrett's face twisted into something ugly, something that had probably always been there, hidden behind the suits and the donations and the handshakes. The real Warren Barrett, stripped bare. "You'll regret this," Barrett snarled. "I will destroy you. I'll take everything you have." Jake looked at him, right in the eyes, and he spoke the truest words he had ever said. "Mr. Barrett, I've already lost everything that mattered. My wife is dead. My daughter was eating off the floor while grown adults watched and did nothing. You can't hurt me anymore, but I can hurt you. Not with fists, with truth. And the truth is already out. It's on the front page. It's on national television. It's in a folder sitting in front of 5 people who have a choice to make right now. You can't buy it back. You can't threaten it away. You can't make it disappear." Barrett opened his mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time in his life, Warren Barrett had no words. Philip Crane pulled him toward the exit. "Victor, we're leaving. Now." "This isn't over," Barrett shouted over his shoulder as Crane dragged him toward the door. "You've made an enemy today, a powerful enemy." "I've had enemies before," Jake said. "I'm still standing." The door slammed behind Barrett. The echo rang through the silent room. Helen Crawford looked like she had aged 10 years in 15 minutes. She gripped her gavel with both hands. "The board will take a recess to review the materials provided." They were gone for 43 minutes. Jake sat in the front row with Emma on his lap. She hadn't said a word during the entire testimony. She had just held his hand and watched. When Barrett had started screaming, she hadn't flinched. She had squeezed her father's hand tighter, and that was all. "Daddy," she whispered now. "Yeah, baby." The angry man was really mad. He was. "Are you scared of him?" Jake thought about it, really thought about it. No, men like that are only powerful when people are afraid of them. Once you stop being afraid, they're just angry men with loud voices. "I'm not scared of Cody anymore either." "Good, because I'm brave like Mommy." Jake held her closer. "Exactly like Mommy." The board returned. Crawford's face was gray. Whatever had happened behind those closed doors had not been pleasant. "The board has reviewed the materials provided by Mr. Dawson and cross-referenced them with this morning's Oklahoma Tribune report. We have also been informed that state education officials will launch a formal investigation beginning tomorrow morning." She paused. Her jaw was tight. Her voice was fighting to stay steady. "In light of these developments, the board has voted unanimously to take the following immediate actions. Principal Thomas Greenfield is suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending the results of the state investigation." A gasp ripped through the room. Greenfield's face went white. He gripped the seat in front of him like a man feeling the ground open beneath his feet. Mrs. Linda Marsh is placed on administrative leave, also pending investigation. Additionally, the board will commission an independent review of all bullying complaints filed at Cedarwood Elementary over the past 10 years. Any complaints that were improperly handled will be reopened and addressed. The room erupted. Applause. Tears. Rosa Delgado sobbed into her hands. Kevin Palmer put his arm around his daughter and closed his eyes. Amy Nguyen stood against the wall with tears streaming down her face, surrounded by 3 other teachers who were holding her like she just survived something enormous. Because she had. They all had. Marcus appeared at Jake's side. "You did it, brother. It's not over." "No, but you drew blood tonight. Real blood. Barrett's empire is cracking. The investigation will finish it." Diana Castillo materialized from the crowd. "Jake, how does it feel?" "Like the beginning, not the end." "You're right. Barrett won't stop fighting. The investigation could take months. There'll be lawsuits, counter-accusations, legal battles. I know, but you won tonight. You showed this town that one person, one father, can stand up to corruption and win. It wasn't just me, it was everyone. The families, the teachers, my brothers. Diana smiled. That's what makes it powerful. A single voice can be silenced. A chorus is something else entirely. Jake found Emma in the crowd. She was sitting with Sophie Palmer, the two girls talking quietly, Sophie laughing at something Emma had said. Two children who had been tormented. Two children who had been told their pain didn't matter. Now sitting together, smiling. That image was worth everything. Every sleepless night, every threatening phone call, every moment of doubt. Two little girls smiling was worth all of it. Jake walked to the front of the room and raised his hand. The crowd went quiet. I want to thank everyone who came tonight, the families who were brave enough to speak, the teachers who risked their careers to tell the truth, my brothers who rode from across this state to stand with us. He paused. This fight isn't over. Barrett will push back. The investigation will take time. There will be setbacks. But tonight we proved something important. We proved that truth matters, that children matter, that a community united can overcome any amount of money or influence. He looked at Emma. 16 months ago, I promised my dying wife I would protect our daughter. Tonight, I kept that promise. But I didn't do it alone. None of us did this alone. And as long as we remember that, we can't be beaten. The room erupted in applause. Jake walked back to Emma and lifted her into his arms. She wrapped her small hands around his neck and held on tight. Did we win, Daddy? Jake looked at the room. The families hugging, the teachers weeping, the 200 bikers standing in silent rows at the back, their presence a wall of solidarity that nothing could breach. The empty chairs where Greenfield and Barrett had been sitting. The cameras that would carry this story across the country by morning. We won tonight, sweetheart. We won tonight. Outside, the air was cool and clean. The bikers formed two lines from the building to the parking lot, a corridor of leather and chrome. As Jake carried Emma toward his truck, the old man with the silver beard stepped forward. What you did in there took real guts, brother. I couldn't have done it without all of you. The old man looked at Emma, half asleep against Jake's shoulder. She's lucky to have a father like you. I'm the lucky one. The old man nodded. He stepped back, and one by one, 212 motorcycles came to life. The sound built into a roar that filled the night, that shook the streetlights, that rolled out across Elk Ridge like a declaration. Jake buckled Emma into her seat. She was asleep before he closed the door. He stood there for a moment, watching the convoy pull out. 212 taillights streaming into the darkness like red stars scattered across the Oklahoma sky. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Chapter meeting tomorrow. We need to talk about what comes next. Jake typed back. I'll be there. He climbed into the truck and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, Emma slept peacefully, her face soft, her breathing even. For the first time in months, she didn't look hunted. She didn't look invisible. She looked like what she was supposed to be, a 6-year-old girl, safe and loved, with a father who had just moved heaven and earth for her. Jake drove in silence. He could almost hear Rachel's voice, feel her hand on his shoulder, hear her whisper the words he needed more than oxygen. You did good, Jake. You kept your promise. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He wiped it away and kept driving. The fallout hit like a freight train. Jake woke the next morning to 17 missed calls, 43 texts, and a voicemail box so full it had stopped accepting messages. He hadn't even made coffee before his phone buzzed again. Diana Castillo. You're everywhere, she said. CNN ran the story at 6 a.m. Fox picked it up at 7. MSNBC at 8. The video of your testimony has been viewed 4 million times. The hashtag #ProtectOurKids is the #1 trend in the country. Jake sat down. 4 million. And climbing. But listen, Barrett's not done. He released a statement at midnight calling everything baseless attacks from a disgruntled parent with a personal vendetta. His lawyers are threatening defamation suits against me, the Tribune, and you personally. Is any of that going to work? Not a chance. But that's not what worries me. What worries me is what he does next. Cornered men don't think clearly, Jake. They react. She was right. And the reaction came faster than anyone expected. At 10:15 that morning, Jake's phone rang. An unknown number. Mr. Dawson, this is Detective Raymond Torres, Ridgeview Police Department. We need you to come to the station. Jake's blood went cold. What for? We received a complaint this morning, an allegation of assault. The complainant is Cody Barrett. Jake gripped the counter so hard the edge cut into his palm. That's a lie. According to Cody, you grabbed him in the school parking lot 3 days before the board meeting. He claims he has bruises consistent with being forcefully grabbed. I have never touched that boy. I have never spoken to him. The first time I saw him was in that cafeteria standing over my daughter. I understand, sir, but we're required to investigate all complaints. Can you come in voluntarily, or do we need to issue a warrant? Jake's mind raced. This was Barrett's play. He couldn't win in public, so he would try to win in court. Get Jake arrested, destroy his credibility, flip the narrative from corrupt billionaire to dangerous biker. I'll come voluntarily, but I want my lawyer present. That's your right. We'll see you at 2. Jake hung up and called Marcus. His voice was flat and hard. They're trying to frame me. Cody filed a false assault complaint. Marcus didn't hesitate. Where are you? Home. Stay there. I'm calling Thomas Wright. He's a former prosecutor. He'll meet us at the station. Don't talk to anyone until we get there. At 2 o'clock, Jake sat in the interview room with Marcus and Thomas Wright beside him. Detective Torres sat across the table. He was in his 50s, gray at the temples, with the tired eyes of a man who had seen too much for too long. Mr. Dawson, let me be clear. You're not under arrest. This is preliminary. We're gathering information. I want it on record that I have never touched, threatened, or spoken to Cody Barrett, ever. Torres nodded. Cody claims the incident occurred at approximately 3:15 p.m. on Tuesday, 3 days before the board meeting. He says you approached him in the parking lot, grabbed his arm, and told him you'd make him pay for what he did to your daughter. That's fabricated. On that Tuesday, I was at the Route 7 diner from noon to 6. I have time cards, security camera footage, a dozen witnesses who'll swear under oath I never left that building. Thomas Wright leaned forward. Detective, my client has an airtight alibi. This complaint is clearly retaliatory. I'd urge you to investigate the timing and motivation. Torres studied Jake for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. Mr. Dawson, I'll be straight with you. This complaint doesn't add up. The timing is suspicious. The details are vague. And Warren Barrett called my captain this morning to personally press for a thorough investigation. Barrett called your captain directly. He did, which is unusual. So you see what this is. I see what it looks like, but I follow procedure. We'll verify your alibi. We'll interview witnesses. If it checks out, the complaint gets dismissed. And if Barrett pressures your department to push it anyway? Torres's jaw tightened. I've been a cop for 22 years. I don't take orders from civilians, not for any amount of money. The alibi held. It was never in question. The diner footage showed Jake behind the grill for the entire afternoon. 12 employees gave sworn statements. Within 24 hours, the complaint was dismissed. But Barrett had landed a blow. Headlines had already run. Father who accused Barrett family faces assault allegation. The narrative was muddied, even if only for a day. Jake sat in his truck outside the station. Marcus climbed in beside him. He tried to destroy me, Jake said. He tried. He failed. What stops him from trying again? He has unlimited resources. I'm a mechanic with a 6-year-old daughter. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Let me tell you something, Jake. I've been in this club 30 years. I've seen brothers face enemies with more money, more power, more everything. You know what I've learned? What? Truth doesn't need money. Truth doesn't need connections. Truth just needs someone willing to tell it and keep telling it until the world listens. Barrett spent decades building walls of lies. You knocked them down in one night. He's panicking because he's never faced someone like you. Someone like me. Someone who can't be bought, can't be threatened, can't be scared off. Someone who's already lost the worst thing a man can lose and came out the other side still standing. That's the most dangerous kind of enemy, and Barrett knows it. Jake looked at his friend. So what now? Now we let the system work, and we make damn sure that when it's done, every person who hurt those kids faces real consequences. The system worked. Slowly, painfully, but it worked. State investigators arrived at Cedarwood Elementary within 48 hours of the board meeting. 3 black SUVs, men and women in suits carrying briefcases, boxes of files loaded out, computers seized, teachers pulled from classrooms for interviews. The school that had operated as Warren Barrett's private kingdom was torn open and examined under a microscope. Within a week, the investigation expanded beyond Cedarwood. Barrett's influence had spread to 3 other schools in the district. Donations made, favors exchanged, complaints buried. The rot ran deep and wide. Principal Thomas Greenfield was formally terminated, his teaching license revoked. He released a statement claiming he was a scapegoat. Nobody listened. Mrs. Linda Marsh resigned before they could fire her. She left Elk Ridge without telling anyone where she was going. Amy Nguyen texted Jake the night of Greenfield's termination. They interviewed me for 3 hours. I told them everything. I feel like I can finally breathe. Jake typed back. You did the right thing. You're braver than you know. Rosa Delgado called him crying. Miguel smiled today. First real smile in months. He came home from school and he smiled, and I just held him and cried. That's why we did this, Rosa. I know. Thank you, Jake. Thank you for fighting when I couldn't. And then 2 weeks after the board meeting, the district attorney dropped the hammer. Criminal charges against Warren Barrett. Witness intimidation. Conspiracy to obstruct justice. Bribery of public officials. 3 felony counts. Barrett was arrested at his home at 6 in the morning. News cameras captured him being walked out in handcuffs, his face a mask of disbelief. The man who had built an empire on silence, who had bought principals and bribed teachers and threatened families and crushed anyone who stood in his way, shuffling across his own driveway in handcuffs while helicopters circled overhead. Jake watched the footage on his phone. Emma was asleep in the next room. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like something heavier and quieter than that. It felt like the thing you feel when a long, terrible wound finally starts to close. Not celebration, just relief, just the slow, aching knowledge that it was almost over. His phone buzzed. Diana Castillo. You watching? Yeah. How does it feel? Like justice, the slow kind. The slow kind is the only real kind. What happens now? His lawyers will fight. It could take months, maybe a year, but the DA's case is airtight. Barrett's going to prison, Jake. Not for as long as he should, but he's going. She was right. The trial took 8 months. Barrett's legal team threw everything they had at the wall. Character witnesses, procedural challenges, motions to suppress. None of it stuck. The evidence was too deep, too documented, too real. Warren Barrett pled guilty to 3 counts of witness intimidation and 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice. He was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. 15 families received civil settlements. The Barrett family was required to fund an independent child advocacy center in Elk Ridge, operated without any Barrett involvement for 20 years. 4 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough for the children he had helped torment. But it was accountability. It was a message that echoed far beyond the courtroom. Money cannot buy immunity forever. A new principal took over Cedarwood, Dr. Angela Morrison, veteran educator. Her first week, she implemented a comprehensive anti-bullying program. Her second week, she personally met with every family that had filed a complaint in the past 5 years. She met Jake on a Thursday afternoon. "Mr. Dawson, I want to thank you. What you did took extraordinary courage. I just wanted to protect my daughter. You did more than that. You changed this school. You changed this community." "What about Cody Barrett?" Dr. Morrison's expression grew serious. "He's been transferred to a specialized behavioral program, intensive counseling, therapy. His actions were terrible, but he's also a child who was taught that cruelty was strength. He was never shown another way." "You think he can change?" "I think everyone deserves the chance. Whether they take it is up to them." Jake thought about that, about cycles, about pain handed down from father to son like a poisoned inheritance. "I hope he takes it, not for my sake, for his." 3 weeks later, a letter arrived at Jake's house, handwritten, uneven letters, the kind of writing that takes effort from a hand not used to being careful. "Dear Mr. Dawson, my name is Cody Barrett. I know I don't deserve to write to you. I know what I did to Emma was wrong. I can't take it back. I think about it every day. The look on her face when I knocked her tray down. It makes me sick. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't think I deserve it. I'm writing because I need to take responsibility. My dad taught me that power meant making people afraid. He said some people mattered less than others. I believed him because he was my dad and I didn't know any different. But I was wrong. We were both wrong. Emma mattered. All those kids mattered. And you showed me what real courage looks like. Not hurting people. Standing up for them. I'm trying to be better. I don't know if I can, but I'm trying. I'm sorry, Mr. Dawson, for everything. Cody Barrett." Jake read it 3 times. Then he put it on the kitchen table and cried. Not rage, not grief. Something he couldn't name. Something that felt like the closing of a very long chapter. Emma found him there. She saw the letter. She read it slowly, her lips moving with each word. "He's sorry," she said. "Yeah, he is. Do you believe him?" Jake thought about it. Really thought about it. "I think I do." "Me too." Emma was quiet for a moment. "Can I write back?" "You want to?" "I want to tell him something." She got paper and a pencil. She wrote carefully, her tongue poking out with concentration. When she finished, she handed it to Jake. "Dear Cody, thank you for saying sorry. It was hard when you were mean. I cried a lot, but my daddy says people can change if they want to. I hope you change. I hope you become kind. Maybe someday you can help someone the way my daddy helped me. That would be good. Emma." Jake's hands shook holding that paper. "Is it okay?" Emma asked. I didn't know what else to say. "It's perfect, sweetheart. It's absolutely perfect." He mailed it the next day. He never heard back. But the cycle had been acknowledged. The seed had been planted. What grew from it was Cody's choice. That spring, the Oklahoma State Legislature passed a bill requiring schools to maintain independent reporting channels for bullying complaints, bypassing administrators with conflicts of interest. Mandatory training for all staff, transparent investigation processes, accountability at every level. They called it Emma's Law. "Daddy, they named a law after me?" Emma's eyes went wide. "They did. But I didn't do anything." Jake knelt down. "You did the most important thing of all. You survived. You kept going when it was hard, and you told the truth when it mattered most." "But I was scared." Being scared doesn't mean you weren't brave. It means you were brave anyway. Emma processed this. Then she smiled, and it was Rachel's smile, bright and fierce and unbreakable. So I'm brave like Mommy and brave like you. Braver than both of us put together. Jake testified before the state legislature in Oklahoma City. He drove with Emma beside him. She pressed her face against the window and watched the hills roll past. Nervous, Daddy? A little. Mommy said being nervous means it matters. He spoke for 20 minutes. When he finished, the committee gave him a standing ovation. Emma tugged his sleeve. Daddy. Yeah? Can we get ice cream? He laughed. He actually laughed. And it felt like the first real laugh in a long, long time. Emma's law passed unanimously. 1 year after the school board meeting, Jake stood at the entrance of Cedarwood Elementary with picture books under his arm. First Monday of the month. Reading Day. He signed in at the front office and clipped the visitor badge to his leather vest. The woman behind the desk smiled at him like he belonged there. Because he did. 22 first graders looked up at him from the carpet. Mr. Motorcycle Man, a boy shouted. Dragon book today? Jake laughed and settled into the reading chair. On the wall behind him, a poster of community volunteers included his photograph. Underneath, in a child's handwriting, Mr. Dawson helps us be brave. He read 3 books. He did the voices. The kids laughed so hard one of them fell over. When it was time to leave, a little girl with red pigtails tugged on his vest. Mr. Dawson, is it true you saved all the kids? Jake knelt down. No, sweetheart. A lot of brave people saved a lot of kids. I just helped. My mommy says you're a hero. Your mommy's the hero. Every parent who loves their kid is a hero. That Saturday, the Hells Angels hosted a community fundraiser for the new Child Advocacy Center. Families from across the county, kids everywhere. Jake stood by the grill flipping burgers, watching Emma run through the crowd with Sophie Palmer and 3 other girls. Laughing, free, loud. The way she used to laugh in Stillwater, before everything went dark. Marcus appeared beside him. She's happy, really, truly happy. Yeah, she is. You did that. We did that. But someone had to go first, brother. Someone had to stand up and take the first hit. That was you. Later that afternoon, Emma found Jake sitting on the clubhouse steps. She sat beside him, flushed from running, hair wild, grinning. Daddy. Yeah, sweetheart. When everything was bad, when Cody was mean and nobody helped, I prayed every night. I asked God to send someone to save me. Jake's heart ached so deep he could feel it in his bones. But that's the thing, Daddy. I wasn't alone. You came. You found me. You fixed everything. I should have found out sooner. I should have. Emma shook her head firmly. No, you came exactly when you were supposed to. And you didn't just save me. You saved Miguel. You saved Sophie. You saved all of them. She looked at him with Rachel's eyes. I think that's what we're supposed to do. Help each other. Stand up for each other. Be brave for each other. Where did you learn that? From you. And from Mommy. And from all those motorcycle men who came to my school. Jake pulled her close and held on. You're going to change the world someday, Emma Dawson. Maybe. But today I just want cake. Is there cake? Jake laughed through his tears. Yes, baby, there's cake. On the anniversary of the board meeting, Jake drove Emma to Stillwater. They stood at Rachel's grave together. Emma placed yellow flowers on the headstone. Hi, Mommy. I brought your favorite. She talked for a long time. About school, about soccer. She was the goalie now. About her friends. About Emma's law. Daddy kept his promise, Emma said softly. He protected me. He protected a lot of kids. They named a law after me, Mommy. Can you believe that? She wiped her eyes. I miss you. Every day. But I'm okay now. I want you to know that. You don't have to worry anymore. She turned to Jake. Can I have a minute alone with her? Of course, sweetheart. He walked back to the truck and waited. When Emma came back, her eyes were red, but her face was peaceful, settled, whole. Ready to go home? Ready. They drove in silence for a while. Then Emma spoke. Daddy, thank you. For what, baby? For everything. For not giving up. For keeping your promise. For being my daddy. Jake's vision blurred. He blinked hard and kept his hands steady on the wheel. Thank you for being my daughter. For being brave. For teaching me what really matters. Emma leaned her head against his arm. We make a pretty good team. The best team in the world. They drove into the Oklahoma sunset, father and daughter, carrying the love of a woman who had taught them both what it means to fight, not with fists, not with fury, but with truth and courage, and a love so fierce it could stare down any amount of money, power, or cruelty and refuse to blink. Jake Dawson was not a hero. He was a father who made a promise and kept it. Emma Dawson was not special. She was a child who deserved to eat her lunch in peace. But together they proved something the whole world needed to hear. One voice, raised in truth, can shatter any wall of silence. One father, armed with nothing but love and a refusal to quit, can bring an empire to its knees. And the promise we make to protect our children is not just words whispered in the dark to a dying woman. It is sacred. Sacred enough to fight for. Sacred enough to sacrifice for. Sacred enough to change the world for. That is the legacy of Jake and Emma Dawson. That is the legacy of 212 men who rode across the state for a little girl they had never met. That is the legacy of every parent who has ever looked at their child and said the only words that matter. I will protect you, no matter what, no matter who, no matter what it costs, and I will never, ever stop.